Hey, what's going on, everybody? It is episode number 216 of the Audible Farm podcast, and this episode is brought to you by Couchtown Coffee. Couchtown Coffee is roasted right here in Iowa. It's my favorite coffee. I drink it every morning. I drink a lot of Couchtown coffee. If you guys drink coffee in the morning, even if you just drink 1 cup a morning, you got to check it out. I mean, everybody likes coffee. We all drink coffee. Couchtown coffee, like I said, roasted right here in Iowa. When you make an order, it's roasted specifically for you. They ship it to your house, and all you got to do is grind it up and have some delicious, delicious coffee. A lot of my friends have converted to drinking Couchtown coffee from their big box store brands, and I'll tell you what. It's not even close competition. It is absolutely the best coffee you'll ever have. Check it out, couchtowncoffee.com. Find a coffee you like, and when you do, let them know Audible Farm sent you, and they'll give you 20% off because Couchtown coffee is that awesome. I know I'm getting some Couchtown, and it might not be too late to get a little bit for the holidays. Maybe make an order, see what you got, see what the shipping time is on that, and hit them up, couchtowncoffee.com. Best coffee roasted right here in Iowa. This episode is also brought to you by the patrons on the Patreon channel. Patrons on the Patreon channel it's $1 a month, video versions of the podcast, and it's all right there. Tell you what, the patrons are the people that make this go round and round. I really appreciate each and every one of you guys that have been donating. People like Patrick, American Made Music, a band from Iowa, Nate, we got Eric, Vince, Ronley, Andy, Abby, Matt, Harold, Justin, and the McAllister Hours, a podcast from right here in Iowa, is also a patron on our Patreon. If you guys want to be a patron, go to patreon.com/audiblefarm. And it's, like I said, $1 a month is all it costs. And you can watch video versions of the podcast right there. Check it out. Thank you guys for being patrons. This episode, I'm sitting down with Liv McNair. I've actually seen Liv play a few times live. The first time I ever saw her, she was in attendance at a show. I was playing with Jesse Wilson at Tapped in Clear Lake, and she was in the crowd. And Jesse says, "You think she'll come up and play during intermission?" I said, yeah, let's ask her. So we asked her, and sure enough, she came up and played during intermission. Loved it. I absolutely loved it. I love it when people are in the crowd supporting other musicians, and any chance we can get to, have them come up and show their talents off as well. I absolutely love it. Nothing wrong with shining a little bit of light on your buddies around the scene. I'll tell you what, the other time I saw Liv was at the CMO Writers Round in Fort Dodge this last month, and that was a fun time too. We talked about it before the podcast. We talked about it a little bit in the podcast, but that was a fun show. I really had a great time watching all the people up there on stage. They even let me come up and plunk out a couple extra notes and play some solos with them. Man, nerve-wracking but fun, I'll tell you what. And we talk about that in the podcast as well. It's super fun to sit down and talk with Liv. I haven't had too much time to sit down and talk with her at shows and things like that. So this was an absolute blast to sit down and talk with her and kind of see what makes her tick and see what her songwriting style is. I'm actually going to leave that in there. See what her songwriting style is, and then see how she kind of formulates it, and where the inspiration comes from, and how she chooses what she decides to put out. And it was crazy to just talk about songwriting in general in this podcast. She really kind of opened my eyes to some things that I guess for some reason, one reason or another, I guess I just didn't. It just never dawned on me or never occurred to me, or it was something that I never really thought about. And she brought it up in this podcast. So I was really grateful. There's some really fun gems in this one that I'm really glad I got to sit down and talk with Liv. I'm not going to let any more out before the episode though. So you guys have to listen to the episode and enjoy it. I'll see you guys on the other end of the outro. This is episode number 216 with singer-songwriter Liv McNair.
It's the Audible Farm Podcast with your host, Peter Stockdale.
I'm sitting down today talking with Liv McNair. Liv, I've actually seen you play live, and in this podcast, that's not something I can always say because I've met a lot of people through this podcast that some I've never actually seen live. But I got to see you at the Writers Round, the Midwest CMO Writers Round that took place in Fort Dodge, Iowa. That was a few weeks ago. Was it like the 20th? I got that written down.
Yeah, I think so. I think that sounds right.
That's pretty cool. Was that one of your first, I guess, like, I don't want to say like quote unquote big shows, but I mean, that's kind of a bigger venue and there's a decent amount of people that were there.
I definitely was like bigger than what I expected for sure. And I've never really done writers rounds, like kind of what we were talking about before. I typically play a lot of dive bars and stuff. So it was definitely a change for me, change in scenery for me, but I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah. I mean, it was crazy because when you go to that, like if you've been to the boardroom, if anyone's ever been there, they do a really good job of like doing like event type stuff. Like if you've been there another time, like maybe like this was like a fancy event. The chairs were all covered, tables were all covered. There was mimosas and stuff around. It was like, geez, this place is fancy, you know. But it was the event. It was what was going on, and that's one of my favorite things about going to that place is it's big enough that it can hold a lot of people, and sometimes it's really packed. It's nice.
No, and it's that the venue's funny too because you walk in and like you look at the elevator, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And I remember being scared to death that the elevator wasn't going to work. So like I'm like calling Scott and I'm like, hey, is this elevator even like functioning? He's like, I'll be there in a minute. So we had to run. It scared me. But it's a totally different vibe once you get up there. It's crazy.
Oh man, I'm not sure it'll still do it, but like I accidentally went to the basement floor in that elevator once, and the door opened and it's scary looking. It's like a Saw movie. You're just like, all right, going back up a floor. Like accidentally went down to the ground floor. But yeah, it's that elevator's fun. Everyone loves it. It's everyone that comes in there, they just like look at it, and if there's like 3 or more people, everyone's like, I don't know if it's gonna work, but it's totally fine. Like.
It doesn't look fine.
It's just old is all it is, but it's been inspected. It's got the little register thingy up there. I don't know. It's great. It's weighted well. We've packed it full of gear and rode it up. It's not a big deal. So.
It's like out of a horror film, though. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, the other option's the stairs.
I suppose.
If I'm hauling gear up, I'll take it up on the elevator. I mean, I'll push it up on the elevator and I'll walk the stairs up if that's the case. But I'm not hauling gear upstairs. I don't know. But yeah, I mean that singer-songwriter thing. How did you end up getting hooked up with that? Is that like an invite-only type of event? Because I mean, I'm not a singer-songwriter, so I'm obviously not going to be involved in it very much. But
I guess I mean I just knew so Jesse. So I had it in with Jesse because I knew Jesse. And then Jesse kind of, I think, told Scott about me, and then Scott and Jesse both kind of reached out to me about doing it.
Nice.
So I got my foot in the door through Jesse. So.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool. Yeah, it seems like that's something that has just kind of like really come naturally to you. Like I've seen you've collaborated with a lot of people, and you've kind of like either met up or like done shows with other people, or done like you're just attending a show and it's like, hey, come up here and play during my intermission if you want to. I've seen you do that before too, you know, and you seem to be very good at that. Let's like start all the way back at the beginning before you could even collaborate with anyone. How did you get interested in being like a singer-songwriter? Did you play guitar first? Did you write music first? Were you a piano player? Is there something?
How far back?
Okay, so you're a baby.
Okay.
No, okay.
Oh, yeah. Promise not to judge me, okay?
Okay.
So when I was about like, I was probably like 5 or 6, and I mean, I'd always kind of like I'd always loved music. Even like before I could talk, like Grandma says she has stories of me like sitting there, like, you know, just loving music when I was a kid. But I was like, I think it was like 5 or 6. My dad had like picked me up from school or something, and he had his like iPod Nano, right? And we're in the truck, and he's driving home or whatever, and he's like, Liv, I have a song for you to listen to, you know? So I'm like, okay, cool. So he pulls up Taylor Swift, all right? And I think it was Teardrops on my guitar, and then it was Ours by Taylor Swift, which were the 2 singles on her debut album when she came out with it in 2006. And from then on, like, I was dead set to be like a country music singer. Like, that was all I wanted. Like, I got a guitar for Christmas when I was like 10. Ended up like learning when I was 14, but ever since then, like, I knew that that's what I wanted to do. And so that was kind of my aha moment, I guess. And then, I mean, I'd always kind of like, once I learned guitar, that opened a lot of doors for me. Up until that point, like, I loved to sing. So, I mean, I'd sing wherever I could. But like I said, once I learned guitar, there were different opportunities. Like, I've played with Damon Dotson before. That was cool. He's super cool. Josh Sinclair was another one that I did stuff with when I was in high school. And I kind of just did like little shows here and there opening for people because I couldn't really sustain a full show by myself. I didn't have the equipment or like the repertoire to do that. And I had no idea what I was doing. And then I ended up moving up here, and I like kind of just started gigging probably a little over like a year and a half ago. And I got my start with the Kraft Brothers up like north here in Clear Lake. And I started playing their breaks. It was kind of cool because I'd known that I wanted to get into it really big. And I'm like, well, I really want to start. And I don't know where to start, but I know these people, like this band. So I was like, I'm just going to give them a call and see what they say. So I called them and I was like, hey, do you have any like suggestions for me on like where to start or like what to do for live music? Because I don't know the first thing, And they were like, well, why don't you come to a gig? You can open for us. If we like you, we'll keep you. And if we don't like you, we'll give you some pointers and we'll send you on your way. So they ended up liking me. They kept me all summer. And then that winter, so December 18th to be exact of last year was my very first gig by myself. So ever since that's kind of a story.
So basically like a year ago, almost like the day this podcast is coming out, like a year ago was your first show.
Yep, by myself. Yeah, absolutely. I think it was at Tapped in Clear Lake.
Dude, that's a cool place to have your first show.
Yeah, they've been super good to me, for sure. I definitely had a good foot in the door there, for sure.
Nice. That's awesome.
But I'd been like stuff before that. I mean, yeah, like in my apartment, I dated shitty men, so I had to have something to write about,
Well, I don't know. If every relationship was good, I think about like 90% of the music would just be deleted from the world. So,
well, I've always said, it's like I look at dating in my 20s as like, like a musical investment, because it's like you get one really good love song on the way in, and then he breaks your heart, and you get like 10 great sad ones. So it's like a win-win for me and a lose-lose for you, dude. Like, I don't know.
That is so hilarious. It's fun to know that this is like just kind of out. You said this at the CMO Writers Round, and I was kind of like, it's a fun way to spin it. And then it's fun to know that you actually kind of think this way, because I mean, I know a few people that think that way. They like make like a little rule for themselves, like I'm going to write one song for you when I meet you, and probably one song for you when we break up, and that's just how most people get. Everyone gets two. That's what he always says. And
I get 11 because I get one really good love one, and then I get like.
You're writing whole albums. It's just like, this album's called Kevin. This one's called Steve. That one's called Bob.
That's a great idea, actually. Concept album. This one's the second shitty man I ever dated. Like, this guy was narcissistic. This guy had a drug problem. This guy was an alcoholic. Like, let's just keep going,
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. I mean, I shouldn't just be like, yeah, bash all the guys, we're horrible, but like, I guess it's.
Well, honestly though, if they could write songs, I'm sure they'd write songs about me too. So I mean, it goes both ways. I mean, if I can dish it out, I can take it too. So.
Oh, very, very true. Yeah, I guess, and I guess, 20s, nobody's like perfect in their 20s. Very few, I guess I should say. So. What's that?
That your 20s suck.
I thought you were going to be like, speak for yourself, bud. Oh, man. You did say something funny, though. I do want to say iPod Nano, and you were like a kid when you were listening to your dad's iPod Nano. And I was like, man, that makes me like 1,000 years old. But I don't know.
1,000 years old. I hate it when people do that. I just thought it was funny because, well, I just remember having one, like when I was little, even like when I was like in high school, like I remember having one. And then now kids don't even know that. So I mean, I'm still younger, but I still know,
That's true. I mean, that's true. It's kind of fun though. It's funny because even though there is like an age disparity between me and other people in the music scene, I don't really necessarily see it though. Because I know people that are like 10 years older than me and 10 years younger than me. It's like, well, the person 10 years younger is just as much fun to play music with. They're just as good. They write songs just as well as the person that's 10 years older. I have just as much fun sitting in with them as I do with this person. And I don't ever see like this age thing, which is weird. But when you're talking about iPod Nanos and stuff. Like, I grew up with cassette tapes, like, come on. Like, that's hilarious. So, 10 to 14. You said you got a guitar at, like, 10, and then you kind of started learning at, like, 14. I feel like there's some people that do that. They'll get one, and then it takes them a while to be like, all right, let's figure this out. So, what was the thing at 10 when you got this guitar that made you not learn until you were 14?
So I do this thing where I try to avoid things that I suck at because I don't like to not be good at something.
Fair.
So, I got this guitar and I was really discouraged with it for a long time. And I think I was intimidated, because I didn't want to fail at it and I didn't want to I never really picked it up. And then I was actually on like a church, we were helping with like a Bible study thing in Tahlequah, Oklahoma, actually. And so we had driven over there or whatever, and there was a girl that had a beautiful voice. She's got music on Apple Music. I still listen to her today. But she's absolutely incredible. I don't think she does music anymore, but she's got stuff she released, years ago. But she I kind of just asked her, I was like, hey, sometime will you just show me a couple chords? And she's like, yeah, perfect. I'll do that. And so she literally sat me down and she wrote them, she drew them out on a piece of paper. And I think she showed me C, D, and G. And that was it. And then I literally went on my way. And I mean, I don't consider myself a guitarist. I mean, I kind of bullshit my way enough to get by now. But yeah, after that, I just kind of taught myself the rest. And so.
That's cool. You kind of just, I feel like that's everyone. That's I want to do this. I don't know if I've got, the moxie to do it. Some people are pretty, bold and brazen, and they'll go out there, haphazardly and be like, I want to fail to succeed, and I'll learn from my mistakes. But people like yourself or even me to an extent, I'm scared to fail in front of people. I want to be good before I go out there. So I was like, if I do this, I'm going to practice this at my house by myself for a while first. And that was kind of, the same way I did it too. It took me a while to ramp up. I played in high school a little bit, but the entirety of my 20s, I just quit playing the guitar because I wasn't any good at it, especially compared to everyone around me. I'm I don't want to go out and embarrass myself. And then one day I was like, well, let's just figure it out, why just be meh, why not actually try? So, it's such a fun avenue to discuss kind of what gets you started too, because you ran into somebody that kind of inspired you and you still listen to the music and they showed you a few chords and on your way they went. And I feel like a lot of people have that in their life, and it's fun to see that you've had inspiration for music and then somebody playing music and singing. And when was the first time that you finally sat down and wrote something to music that you had written?
So actually kind of funny. So I'd always kind of messed around with stuff in high school. It was never really any good. I think the very first song I wrote, I was probably 14, 15. And I wrote it about a guy in high school, and I was super proud of it. I played it at all my school functions, anywhere I could play, I'd play it. I was proud of it. That was really my first song. I had some discouragement with it from, some people that I was close to. And so I just quit writing for I think I didn't write again until I was 19 in college. And I was engaged to this guy, and he broke my heart. So I wrote Foolproof, and that's what Foolproof's about. And that was my second ever song that I had ever written.
Oh, wow.
So, well, technically my second solid song I had ever written. So yeah, so that was kind of, yeah.
Do you still remember your first song you ever wrote?
Do I kinda? I mean, I have videos of it somewhere that I'll never send you.
Well, I'm not trying to be hey, send them over, but I would definitely listen to them. But I guess my thought was, is it ever something you could bust out again and play somewhere? Or
very embarrassed to do so because it's not good. It's not, I would play it for I don't know, to be nostalgic, but I wouldn't expect people to enjoy it. Cause I said, it was not, melodically and lyrically, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Looking back, but I was 14, that's how I processed things, so I think I probably could, if I sat down. I think I had it on Capo 4, and I think I remember the chords, and I think I remember the lyrics.
Nice. I'm a big fan of people pulling stuff out of their past and retooling it and using it again. Could it be repurposed? Could it be remixed? Could it be changed up a little bit and turned into a song that you release eventually? You never know.
And I find myself doing that where I've written songs and then put them onto different songs, and then I just make all the time. With that song, I've taken a couple lyric pieces from that song and used songs I've written. Because some of them are good. So yeah, I think it's kind of cool how that works, I think.
Yeah, it's not completely unheard of. I do know, I guess growing up I was super into certain bands and things like that, and I would get really into weird stuff. Let's see if I can find their demo tapes for whatever album came out and what's on the demos that didn't make it and stuff. And then you start to find out that those musicians and those singers and stuff are pulling stuff from these demos that didn't make it onto an album, and then using pieces of them in other songs later in their discography, and it's like, oh sweet, this thing from 3 albums ago that was a demo, they clipped it out and then turned it into the center section of this song down the line, 7 years later. It's like, that's wild that somebody did that, and but at first I was like, well, it's cheating, but at the same time, like, there's so many people that it's no different than having like half of a sketch done and just being like, I'll finish this later, or I'll come back and I'll use this as inspiration to do a different sketch. It's no different than like physically drawing stuff or whatever, actual art, or it'd be like building half of a house and then just giving up because you're just like, I didn't finish it. Like today, if I didn't finish it today, it's garbage. It's like, you don't do that.
I think for me, like, that's always how I've done things. I'm very not like OCD at all. Like, my notes app on my phone is a mess, and so it would make sense that my songwriting is very like kind of messy like that, like where I just I just kind of, there's no structure there, if that makes sense. Actually foolproof. So it actually had a whole different verse than what it ended up with. But I had pulled this verse from another song that I had written, and then I, just So foolproof is a good example of like that. But yeah, no, I'm notorious for doing that. So.
Did you ever play any other instruments other than the guitar?
In high school, I mean, like I dabbled. Like my main instrument was like I played a clarinet and I played an oboe. But like, I mean, I could kind of played a bass clarinet for a while. I played a saxophone in a jazz band, but I wasn't really super exceptional at like any of them. I mean, I just kind of was decent enough to get by or fill a spot if they needed me to.
Have you ever found yourself like using any of the anything you learned then to use with your music now?
No.
No?
No. I don't know. No. I have a clarinet in my closet. I don't even think I could play it anymore.
Oh, man. We gotta... it's gonna be on the next album, the clarinet solo.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if I have like the style of music that like, I hear clarinets in country music? I don't know.
I don't know. Why not? It could happen. It could very well happen. So it's also wild to me to think that, like, I mean, it's just looking back. I mean, you're probably thinking the same thing, but like, wrote your first song at 14. It's like, well, you're confident when you're younger, and it's like, cool, I did this thing. Everyone check it out. But then, of course, a couple people poo-poo it. There's high school, hooray! It's always great, isn't it? But if anybody out there's listening is high school, it's fine. You'll make it out. But like, it's tough. It's tough. You start to take what people say or think or like the way they act, and you're just like, I should probably just quit doing this forever. And you took a while off till you finally like wrote another one, and it took basically getting your heart broken to write another song. Right. Was there something that made you pick up the pen and the guitar again, or were you just kind of like writing bits and pieces of songs and playing and tinkering in the background, or just did you just have the guitar completely put away for 5 years? Let me ask you that.
There was a point in time, like there was a good where I didn't touch it for like, but I when all that happened, that was actually like, I'm very thankful that happened looking back, because when I was like dating him or we were engaged or whatever, I didn't play all that often because I didn't have time. I mean, I just was so focused on other things. And when that happened, it really like, I really had to take a step back and, obviously I had to restructure my priorities. And I got back to playing, and I kind of remembered why I played in the first place. And it was for me, I mean, that was how I process things. And so for me, like writing that song was very therapeutic. And I sat down and I didn't even like, that song for me wasn't one that I sat and was like, oh, I'm going to write a song and it's going to be great. At that point, I was just like, I just need to write down what I'm feeling, because this isn't like, I can't handle it. Like, I just can't handle it. So yeah, that was kind of how it came about. I just was completely heartbroken on my floor in my kitchen, and that's how it happened, I guess. So
okay,
I don't explain it. Like,
this might sound weird then. This is going to be a question that I don't know if I've ever asked anyone, but like, I've attempted to write songs. It's not easy. Let me just say that. Like, writing a good song's not easy. You can write a crappy song. I can write a crappy song. Anybody can write a crappy song. But like, when I'm, especially lyrically, I have a difficult time, especially when I'm using a lot of emotions. Let me just say that. Like, if I ever am sad or heartbroken or something like that, and I try to write a song, how do you keep, and this goes for a lot of people, write in if you're listening, how do you guys keep your songs from being bitter? Let me ask you that. Is like, I get it, but like maybe that's just me, like speaking about like how my emotions come out when I'm sad and heartbroken or whatever. But like, how do you keep your song? Because your songs aren't just like, this guy sucks, he's a piece of crap, what a toolbox, you know, get him out of my life. Like, your songs aren't like that. And that's what I figured, like, if I was a heartbroken woman, I'd just be like, what a piece of crap. Like,
well, see, and I think that's where, like, you know, and if that's how you feel, though, I mean, like, there's nothing wrong with writing that way. I just, like, because I think where a lot of people who, like, try to songwrite get stuck, and that's where I found myself getting stuck. I think that's where writer's block is very prevalent, is when you get so stuck in, like, I want to write this way, this way, this way. I don't want to write bitter. I don't want to write like that because people won't like that, and I don't want to come off looking like that. Well, and maybe some people can write. I don't know. The way that I write is, like, I write what I feel, and if that's how I feel, I'm going to write about it. And if it's not good enough to, like, you know, put out there, it's not good enough for me to put out there. If it's too bitter for me to put out there, it's too bitter for me to put out there. But at least then I wrote it for me, and that's how I process things. With Foolproof, I mean, it was just one of those things where, like, I guess I have a hard time being bitter about stuff like that. So, I mean, I've never really struggled with that. I mean, I have, but I just think, I think a lot of people get stuck in why they songwrite. Like, are you songwriting to write good songs and to, like, you know, or are you songwriting to, like, heal yourself or to, like, you know, to just write for you? Because I oftentimes get stuck in trying to write for other people or trying to write the best thing I can. But sometimes I find the best things that I do write are when I write for myself. If that makes sense. I know I kind of rambled.
no, I gotta be honest. That made a lot of sense. Like, even if I'd never ever release a song, it makes me feel like I need to start writing songs. That sounds like therapy, and I could probably use that.
But the weird thing is for me, like, I have a really hard time just sitting down writing poems or writing, like, journaling. I had a really hard time with that. So, I mean, I think just writing in general is therapeutic. I think just sometimes maybe the style is just different for everybody. I don't know.
I mean, oh God, that just opens a whole nother can of worms. Like, you don't like journaling, you know, you probably won't have a blog. You're probably not one of those type of people, but your journal and your blog is the music that you're making and putting out into the world. Like, it's like the open spot in your journal that you're letting everybody see. Like, that makes.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah,
that's
definitely.
That's wild. I don't know. This is just like, this is getting almost meta, like, at this point. It's just crazy to think about that, because I guess you even brought up a good point. Why are you writing music? Are you writing songs to try to write good songs? Or are you just trying to write hooks that people are going to get, like, sucked into? Or are you trying to, you know, you just, like, buy drum samples and then, you know, throw instruments on top of it and call it good? Like, there's a million ways you can do it and things you can try, you know, and
There's nothing wrong with it. It was like, I have friends who can sit down, and if you tell them, like, hey, write a song about the fox that I just saw outside, you know, like, I mean, they can sit down and write about it. I can't do that. I don't have the ability to do that. And I think everybody's just different, and it's kind of a beautiful thing. Like, you know, it's I don't know, to me, it's fascinating that there are so many different avenues that you can go down, and so many different ways that you can do it. And I think everybody, like, when people talk about having, like, a niche, like, that's kind of what they mean, I think. So
that makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's crazy because I never really thought too much about that too, because there's different styles of writing songs and different ways you can do it. And some people, like you said, have a niche in one area or another. You know, it's almost like watching the guys that do, like, hip hop music. And, like, if I wanted to make a drum beat on my computer, I could do it. It would take me a while. But those dudes are just like, ba-doop, boop, boop, drag a couple things, and wham, they've got this, like, elaborate drum beat. And you're like, holy crap, how'd you do that? And they're like, I've done it before. Like, it just comes down to, like, whether or not you've done it before. And then I guess, like, have you ever tried to step outside of your comfort zone to create something that's not necessarily what you would normally create? Like,
no, go ahead.
I was going to say, like, just an example would be, like, I see you play acoustic a lot. Have you ever, like, been like, I'm going to write a song on the electric and see what happens? Or, like,
well, I don't own one of those. But, well, kind of, I mean, stylistically, like, yeah, kind of. So there was a song that came out. So Zach Bryan came out with that American Heartbreak album, like, last, I think, July or something, right? May, July. And there was a song on there, and it was called 68 Fastback. And I don't know if you're familiar with it or not. It's one of my all-time favorite songs, like, lyrically, like, absolute beautiful piece. You know, most songs are structured verse, chorus, you know, bridge, chorus, outro, or whatever it might be, you know. This song was not structured like that. It was structured more in like segments and very more like didn't even make sense. Sorry, poetically. And I was just absolutely inspired by it. I didn't even realize that I subconsciously was inspired by it. So I sat down one day. I had a guy who ghosted me, and so I sat down and I just wrote how I felt. And next thing I know, I wrote this song that was structured like very similar to that. And, you know, like I said, I'm used to writing country music. So country music is very structured and very, it all kind of sounds not the same, but it's got the same structure, right? So this was very different for me. That was my song called Easy to Leave. And I think it's going to be the next single. I'm super excited about it. More pop sounding, but it definitely, it's written more like a poem. So, I mean, as far as like lyrically and stylistically, I definitely kind of went outside of my norm for that one. And I had a hard time with that one because I had a lot of people tell me that they didn't like it. And I had a lot of people tell me that just very discouraged about it, that like it wasn't country radio and that it wasn't good enough to be on the radio and it wasn't good enough to be released as a single and how it didn't sound like something that I would write. And so I really struggled with that, you know, just kind of feeling really discouraged by everybody. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's such a tough thing. Like even when sometimes when people, even when they're trying to be positively critical about something, you know, like help you out, it's still just kind of like, man, that didn't do me any favors when you said that, you know, like.
Well, and especially, I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
You know, like especially when it's something so personal as like writing a song, like because they didn't see me crying on my kitchen floor to write that, you know what I mean? But I was there. Like I was there when it happened. I was there when I was crying about it on my floor writing it. Like they didn't see all that. And so for me, like having somebody sit there and tell me that it's not good enough, I take that really personal, and I shouldn't. And I struggle with that. But it's really hard to not take that personal because you're like, it is personal. It's a personal song, and to have you not like it, or have you tell me that it's not good enough, or it's not something that you would expect from me, or that you think that I could do better, that really hurts, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I totally get it. Like you brought into, you know, it's a very personal thing. Songwriting is, I mean, it can be, it doesn't always have to be. I'm sure some songs have nothing to do with being personal, but still, like it's like you said, the inspiration for that song could be from somewhere that's so deep within your heart that when somebody criticizes the song, it feels like they're criticizing you personally when it comes down to it. And it does take a lot. Like it took me to the point of like, instead of like, I used to get so like sad and depressed when people kind of criticized either like my guitar playing or like heckled or things like that, eventually I got to the point where it just became frustration. And I asked somebody, like, when they heckled me, I was like, well, you get up here and play guitar. And they're like, well, I don't know how. And I lost it. And I was like, oh, this, you know, like, why would you say anything? And I was like, wait a second. That's probably a lot of the people that are criticizing things do it because they can't do that thing in the first place, you know? Yeah. So that's where I try to like never criticize people's like songwriting and things like that. Cause I can't write a song, you know, I can't write a good song. I just can't do it, guys. But like, maybe I'll release one 40 years from now, but still, like, it's one of those things. I just, it's tough. And when I hear you guys writing songs, it's just like, God dang, this is a good song. I mean, people know I'm not a country fan, but there's a lot of your guys' songs that I really enjoy. And it's like, why? I don't know. It's just, I don't know. You guys are going to suck me into country. I'm not going to go easily. I'll tell you that much. But, I do, like a lot of people do know, I do play with Jesse. And that was actually, I think, the first time I had met you was playing a show with Jesse. So, yeah. Oh man, that's crazy. So, I do have like a little like mini timeline here. I do know that you did a song with Adam Whitehead. You did a collab with him. The song was "Sober Up for You," and that came out this last summer. It was June of 2022, and I know that "Foolproof" was officially released just like a couple months ago. It was like October of this year. So. Yep. I'm assuming, like, based on how the timeline works, you wrote Foolproof and it just took a while to like finally record it and get it out there. But like, was Adam Whitehead was your, like, doing a collaboration with him was your first exposure to getting recorded and going out?
Yeah, that was my first exposure to getting like recorded. And then after that, I did that and then I was hooked. I was obsessed and I was like, I can't wait to do this again. So I did it again and then I released it as soon as I could. So I think I had it recorded and done in August and I didn't end up releasing it until October. But I had written Foolproof I think it probably would have been, it probably would have been October of like 2019. So back when I was like in college, yeah.
So how many songs do you have that, like, if somebody just came up to you with like a blank check and was just like, yeah, like just go into the studio tomorrow and record a bunch of songs, like how many would you say like that you play out live? Are you just like, do you have like 5, 6, 7 in the back pocket that you're just like, yeah, I'm just going to start trickling out singles here out the next year or so? Or
I probably do.
Oh no, you cut out. That's all. Okay, you're back in. That was crazy. Like I asked you a question, your answer was completely muted.
I'm so sorry.
That's all good.
Probably 6 or 7.
Nice.
That are solid, that are finished. I have dozens and dozens of like half-finished songs that I would love to finish, but yeah, I don't know, probably 6 or 7.
That's crazy. How do you know when you're writing a song if it's like this is near completion or this is just an idea or like I've got the shell of it here, I just need something else? How do you know when a song is done? Let me ask you that.
You don't. For me, I'm kind of like a perfectionist too. So for me, like I'll beat myself up about it until I just can't anymore. I like Foolproof. I think that's why it took me so long too, because I just kept thinking like it needs a bridge. Like I just remember kept saying that, like it needs a bridge, it needs something else. And then everything that I would write, everything that I would fix about it, I just didn't like, and it just didn't fit. And then I'm finally like, well, maybe it's not meant to have a bridge. Maybe it's not meant to sound like that. And so I just kind of, I don't know how to explain it. I don't know. I think it's a feeling. I think you just feel it and you just know, and you just like creatively, like you just know when you can't go any further with it. If that makes sense. I don't know.
I mean, it's the same. Okay, so these are the things I'm bad at. I can't paint or draw either, and that's another thing. Like if I ever like did anything that was even remotely close to good, it's like how do I know when this is finished? And then eventually I just overdo it and it's crap. Yeah. You just start painting until everything's just starts turning brown. And that's what I feel like I would end up doing if I was just like had unlimited time in a studio to tinker with a song. I'd just be like, well, let's add 40 layers, and it's like, well, let's delete 20 of them, and then you just before you know it, the song's not even the same. And I mean, that's the benefit of digital, though. You can always go back.
But I really struggled with that. Like there was just one, actually the easy to leave one, that was so personal. I don't know why that one was more personal to me than Foolproof, but it just was. It was like more poetic. It was more lyrically. But recording that one, I had a really hard time. I think my producer Craig was probably fed up with me, and I don't blame him. I would have been too. But like I'm very hands-on when it comes to stuff like that, and so I'm very opinionated with like what I like and what I don't like, and but I think that was one for me that like I really struggle with being like, okay, Liv, like enough's enough, like just it's good. I mean, it is what it is. Like we like it, you just stop fixing it. Like it's not gonna get any better than what it is now. If that makes sense. Yeah, I struggle with that.
Gosh, and I mean I get it. Like I feel like it's no different than like kind of like baking. Like baking's one of those things where it's just like you mix this stuff. It's like don't over mix though, you'll wreck it. And it's like what? Like you can over mix things? Like yeah, you'll wreck it. And it's like oh, okay.
So I suck at baking though. Maybe that's why. Maybe I'm over mixing shit. I don't know.
I found out the hard way. It's like why does everybody's stuff rise and there's like all airy and nice? It's like because you're beating all of the air out of everything. Like there's no air in anything. Like oh. Biscuits. That was how I learned cooking biscuits because it's cheap and easy. So I was like, I'm going to learn how to cook with biscuits. It's, it costs like a cent to make a biscuit. So that's now we're getting a weird talk, but excuse me. Oh my gosh. So you've collaborated with Adam Whitehead. Do you see yourself collaborating with anyone else in the future? I know maybe not necessarily like in the studio, but you had talked about like playing shows with other people and things like that. The CMO, was that like an inspiration to do something? Because I know I've seen a few people do like a double booking where they'll both book a show together and they're both singer-songwriters and they'll do like, you do a half an hour and then we'll do some songs together and then I'll do a half an hour and then we'll do some songs together and then you'll do a half an hour. So there's never dead air time, but everyone gets little breaks, Anything like that? Is there anything that you have, working? Are there some people that you're like, I'm working on this song with these people, it's going to be awesome. Is there anything you have in the future like that?
I mean, as of right now, not really. I would love to do a show like that, though. I think that'd be super fun. I've never done like a co-show like that. Like I said, I've always just like opened or played for somebody's breaks or something, like what I did for you and Jesse. But I would love to do like a show with somebody. I think that'd be super fun. I just, not to get like off on a tangent, but I have a really hard time playing consistently. Like, I've never really played with a band or anything. Like, I've always just played with me, and so I have a really hard time like being consistent enough to play with other people. If that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, so your style, for people that don't know, I like to say it's almost like croonery. It's like it's meandering. It's free flowing. So
Yeah.
I enjoy that because it's almost like, here come the words, and it's like, oh no, there they come, and it's like, or it's enjoyably surprising to listen to that kind of music, because I feel like music is so regimented that when you run into people that do that, it's like almost like really folksy kind of playing, a la Bob Dylan kind of stuff. Like Bob Dylan, it's like if you put a metronome to Bob Dylan, it's just not really going to work out too well all the time. And that's what I view like, there's a handful of people that have been on the podcast actually that have that writing style. And I kind of view it like crooners, you almost, those guys that used to just have tuxes and they'd be smoking cigarettes and drinking martinis, singing next to a piano. Like, the words are coming out like fast and slow at times and things like that. And the tempo is consistent, but the music kind of ebbs and flows in and out through it. And that's what I say.
I guess I've, people criticize me a lot on that. And like I said, that is something that I've been working on, being more consistent. But that is a struggle for me as a musician. Like I said, I'm used to playing live all the time. So you don't have to really worry about playing with a metronome or playing with other people or being consistent. Like, it's really just you and you, so
yeah.
I don't know. So
yeah, I mean, I do know that's a thing that a lot of people will judge themselves or others harshly on, because everyone's like, well, music has to have a tempo and this, that, and the other. But I feel like it's the things that when you get outside of that makes a difference. I feel like it almost bleeds into your writing style just a little bit. Because I remember when I had first heard Foolproof and I turned it on, I was like, oh, this song is... The structure is not as just like, here's 3 chords, there's 3 chords, here's 3 chords, there's 3. It wasn't very just like cut and blocky like most songs. Like, that's how I write songs. It's just like, here's a block of stuff, here's a block of stuff, here's a block. And yours felt like it flowed into one another so much better than what I would normally write. And I feel like your playing style might lend itself to your writing style a little bit, or vice versa, maybe.
I suppose. Yeah, I think there's that. Because I'll send Craig like a tape, of me like playing and like the chords that I use and stuff, and it's not. He has to structure it and everything for me. He has to help me. I I can't. No time signature. What the hell's that? Like, I'm kidding. But I do struggle with that.
No, I mean, I get it. Like, it's definitely a thing that, like, if, singing and playing, I also feel like doesn't lend itself when you're figuring out, like, the best ways to go about it. Like, it's so hard to describe. So, like, the guitar plays pretty much relatively squarely to the drums, but, like, the singing, if you've ever, like, tried to, like, note out the singing, or, like, on a piano, or, like, figure out the notes on a guitar, it's like, oh, these words aren't on the beat with stuff very much. Like,
No.
There's a lot of open spaces and then a whole bunch all at once, and open spaces. And so that's where I feel like the crooner style is enjoyable for that, because you can actually like expand on all the ebbs and flows of the vocals and then transform the music around it. I don't know. I enjoy that. I think it's just because it's not common, and there's people that can pull it off very, very well. And it's almost like a form of jazz, like at times. It's.
And I hate jazz. I'm not gonna lie.
I'm over here trying to compliment you, like, your music is kind of like this other music, and you're like, I hate that. No, okay, never mind. Well.
No, it's a compliment because I don't listen to it. So I'm like, okay, well. I know I'm not subconsciously taking inspiration from it, so I think it's kind of cool that, you've made that connection. I still think it's a compliment. I have appreciation for all types of music I don't like. It's not my first choice.
Totally get it. I totally get it. Okay, so now I'm going to have to ask you something kind of blindly, because I didn't write it down in my notes when you said it out loud. Your first shows were up in the Clear Lake area, you said, and there was a band that you had opened up for and kind of played their breaks. What was that band again?
the Kraft brothers.
Did I see you had a show recently or have a show coming up with them?
I've got one, yeah, it might be recently. I guess I haven't seen it on Facebook or anything yet, but I have one on New Year's Eve with them.
Awesome. I was actually like, I was getting down through my notes and I'm like, these shows, I feel like there was one that she was going to be playing with them, but I just had to ask because I don't know. That you do have a show coming up on the 16th though. This is going to come out on Thursday. So if you're listening to this the day it comes out, you have a show on Friday the 16th, correct?
Yes, at Matt's place in Garner.
Awesome. That's that's still up in that Clear Lake-ish kind of area up there.
It's actually 3 blocks from my house. So I live in Garner. Yeah, it's about like 15 minutes west of Clear Lake.
Nice. That's not so bad. It's not so bad.
No.
I used to go up to Clear Lake a lot to go to the ballroom, obviously. You know, I'm not a lake person. I burn easy. I don't belong on boats. But
me too. Amen.
I mean, I don't know. It all looks like it's really fun, but yeah. I don't know.
I know it doesn't. I'm drunk on like the beach, just like, you know, on solid ground. I can still have fun, you know.
Yeah, exactly. But oh gosh, and it's such, I don't know. I think it's just going to the shows up in Clear Lake and things like that, and you know, venturing to Des Moines and back to do shows and things like that. But that like hour and 20-minute jaunt that it takes for me to get to Clear Lake really doesn't seem like it's that long, you know. And it's kind of the same deal for you if you wanted to play a show in Fort Dodge. It's probably like about, you know, a little over an hour, maybe an hour and a half tops to get to Fort Dodge or whatever. So, I mean, are you used to putting the miles on the road? Is that something that's like bothers you or doesn't bother you, or have you played enough shows far enough away that you're just like, man, it's whatever? So
I don't have any driving. I drive all the time. So my hometown is actually 2.5 hours south of me. So it's in Winterset, Iowa. I don't know if you're familiar.
Where'd you say?
What'd you say?
No, what did you say?
Oh, I said my hometown's in Winterset, Iowa.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I go back there probably every other weekend, and so like I said, that's 2.5 hours there and then 2.5 hours back. So I don't know. I'm not allergic to driving by any means. I love it. I don't know.
Yeah, I've spent some time in Winterset. Yeah. It's a nice place though. That's a nice town.
It is a nice town. I like it.
The little square on the city center is fun. It's like, you know, built up, looks nice, whatever. I don't know.
Well, it did. Now it's there's a bunch of construction on like the courthouse, so it's not very pretty right now. But
that's fun. I feel like that's something that might deter some people when it comes, you know, time to play shows and things like that, is the fact that people might not understand. It's like, man, like, you're really good. Where are you from? It's like, you're from here. It's like, holy cow, you drove, like, you're going to be driving like 3 hours today round trip, and then also playing, you know, a 3 or 4 hour show, you know, plus load in and load out and tear down, and maybe you have a job and you worked that day as well. Like, that's one of those things I don't think a lot of people necessarily think too much about, is, you know, how much of that actually goes on.
Well, and especially when you're booking a show too, sometimes I think, you know, venue owners kind of do that too. But like, you know, I mean, I'm pretty generous with you know, how I charge and things. But if I'm driving like more, you know, like, okay, like, you know, like, I'm not just, this isn't just down the street for me. This is 3 hours for me, you know. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you're justified in that. I mean, there's definitely something in that. When I first started playing shows, I kind of just sat back and watched how people booked their shows, because I don't have too much experience booking shows. So I would watch people, and it's like, they give, you know, the places where that's like their hometown place, if it's easy to play there. If you want to go down there and play once a month, it's like, I probably shouldn't charge, you know, out the wazoo, and just be like, hey, you know, this is the same as if I had to drive 4 hours away to a show. Like, you know, so you got to kind of like take care of your buddies or take care of the hometown venue. But like you said, I mean, you're justified in charging, you know, more, especially if you're going to drive. And that's something that I think maybe even some people booking shows might actually forget. You know, by the end of the night, they like get the gas back in their car, you know, when they get home, and they're like, wait, I probably should have charged a couple bucks more or something. You know, like there's probably some of that goes on where people have to learn the hard lesson.
And I've definitely been there, or I've been where, like, you know, I've booked a show, and then I kind of, like you said, like, yeah, I just don't think about it. And then I'm like, well, shoot, like, I should have definitely charged more, because now I'm out more money than what I made, because, you know, but I think, you know, I don't know. I think that just goes with learning, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a weird thing though, too, because you're selling like, you know, you're selling art. You're selling live art to people, and it's such a weird thing. It's like, how much do you charge for this? It's like this much, like everyone's got especially everyone's got a friend that makes art. I've got friends that make paintings that they've sold for $20. I've got friends that make paintings that are like all of them are like 100 plus, and I've know people that have paintings that sell for thousands, and it's just like. It's all art, it's all paintings, but it's just like, man, it just depends on who's doing what and who says they can charge how much and who's going to pay what for who and et cetera. It's such a weird concept, to pay for art and how it's, I think we talked about this in a past podcast. You go into those like art studios and those galleries, it's like somebody duct tape a banana to a wall and they're like, that's art. And you're like, I don't know about that, but hey, I guess if someone's going to give you millions for it, rock and roll, so. I don't know. Sorry, I went off on a tangent there, but
I completely agree with you.
I do want to say though, I found your shows on your Facebook page. I do know you have a Facebook page. So if anybody is looking for information from Liv, there's definitely a Facebook page available if you want to go that route. Otherwise, I think you have an Instagram and maybe a YouTube. Does that sound correct?
Yep. And then like I'm on.
Oh no, that all cut out.
No, really? I'm sorry. No, I have a YouTube, TikTok as well. Wherever you can, essentially listen to music. Liv McNair Music is my handle for everything on my social media. So
nice. I will. I'll make sure to put links down below. So if you're listening to this and you're like, I gotta go click the follow button real quick, wham! Just scroll down, click it right now. You can still listen to the podcast while you're clicking follow and like on everything. So. You'll have to send me. I don't have TikTok, so you'll have to send me the TikTok link. But otherwise, I will just slam them all right in there down below. I do want to say, like, if you guys are looking for other shows she has coming up, the social media is the place to go. So make sure you go check it out. Like I said, I found those events on the Facebook. You do have posts semi-regularly on your Facebook, so it's nice. It's nice to know you're out there and you're accessible and you're keeping people up to date with what's going on. So that is definitely also a cool thing. Is there anything that we haven't covered in this episode? I feel like, let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I got most of the goodies on here. If I wasn't playing on New Year's Eve, I'd probably come check you out with the Kraft Brothers, because it's not the first time I've heard the name either from you or seeing him on your page. It's like you're going to play a show with them. So I'm intrigued. I definitely gotta go check them out.
Yeah, you should. They don't play much in the winter. They're typically more summer up in Clear Lake, but Clear Lake's a very seasonal town, so it's hard to find gigs and shows and stuff up here in the winter. But in the summer they're very, very they're very
nice.
Where are you for New Year's Eve?
We are playing at Boom Koozies. I'm wearing the hat right now. That's straight up promotion. See, the hat came in handy already. It's fun. I don't know. Koozies. It's going to be Koozies New Year's Eve. It's going to be awesome. That's in Fort Dodge, for those of you that don't know. It is the old, I don't know, it's had a few different names. It's been sold and resold. I forget. It's the old King's Lounge. It was something else too. But yeah, Koozies. Great place. We played there maybe about a week ago, and it was awesome. It was an awesome time. So, yeah, definitely. I feel like that's the best and worst part probably about playing music is like that CMO Writers Round, just seeing you guys all sit there on stage together. I was like, man, they all look like they're having so much fun because they never get to go see each other play, and you're on stage sharing the stage and watching each other and listening to each other play. And that's something that's, I feel like, is that weird double-edged sword with being a musician, is you don't always get to go watch your friends play.
No, that does suck. That is the one part about doing it.
Yeah, well, I guess you got to take the good with the bad. Take them both, and there you have.
I suppose.
The facts of life. There it is. Anything else you want to add to this before we shut down the recording?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
So much.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure to watch you. Actually, like I said, complete happenstance. I didn't know you were going to be at that Tapped show that Jesse and I were playing, and it was like, well, heck yeah, bring her up here on the intermission, please, and it was cool to meet you then, and it was also cool to be able to have some free time to go see at that CMO Writers Round, because I think that was on a Sunday, wasn't that?
Yep.
Nice. Perfect.
29th of January.
The 9th of January is the next one?
29th.
29th. All right. I'll have to make sure I bookmark that one too. So don't go away. I do want to say thanks again for joining me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. What a fun interview with a fun person. If you haven't seen Liv live, you're missing out. You got to go check it out. She plays a lot of shows, like we said, up in that Clear Lake kind of area. But she is venturing out and playing shows out and about. So definitely go to the Facebook, go to the Instagram, check out the TikTok. I'm not on TikTok, but definitely go check out that TikTok as well. There's all sorts of social medias. I put the links down below. She made a link tree, and it's in there. It's in the link tree link down below. So just click that, and it'll pop up all the links for all the social medias, as well as places you can listen to her music, which is very much encouraged. Check out Foolproof. That's out there. Check out Sober Up For You, a collaboration she did, being featured on an Adam Whitehead song. Definitely worth checking out. She's got more in the works. We talked about that and kind of hinted at it a little bit in this episode. I don't know if she's told anyone else, but she hinted at it here first, maybe. So check it out. Definitely follow her on the social media so you don't miss out on the upcoming songs. And check out some of the songs she has released. Go to some of the shows she's got. She got shows coming up. This weekend she has a show in Garner at Matt's Place. Check that out. It's going to be great. Let's see here. I'm trying to remember if I'm booked this weekend. I think I might be free. I don't know. I'll have to see what's going on. Maybe I'll swing up there. You never know. You never know what's going on. I'll tell you what. We talked about that in this. It's fun too, because when you're like, you have all this free time, it's kind of boring, but it's nice to have free time. So we always try to stay busy. All of us always try to stay somewhat busy, and that's kind of what it is. When there's a night off and I'm not playing music, it's kind of like, man, what do I do with myself? And then I usually end up going and watching some music. Usually, not always, but you never know. Otherwise, New Year's Eve, if you're in the Clear Lake area and you don't have plans, guess what? You've just made them. She's going to be playing at Tapped in Clear Lake. That's New Year's Eve. Check that out as well. It's going to be awesome. So check out all her social medias. Make sure you give her a like, follow, subscribe, share. Share this episode. That's like the easiest way to support the podcast. I know there's the shop, there's the Patreon, there's everything else. But if you made it this far into the episode, let them know, hey, I listened to Liv McNair on this podcast. It was great. I think you might enjoy it too. Boom. There's a little share button wherever you're listening to this. Just click that, share it with one of your buddies. Say, hey, Liv was on this podcast. You're going to like it. Check it out. Boom. There we go. Otherwise, if you guys are looking to support the podcast monetarily, there is the Patreon. Patreon is where video versions of the podcast are housed. It costs $1 a month. That's only $12 a year for like 50 episodes. The episodes cost like a quarter. It's up to you. It's not mandatory. Otherwise, it's going to be free. Audio versions always free. So check that out if you guys are looking to watch the video versions of this. I do post clips usually, but not always. So there's usually clips, but like I said, not always. And otherwise, if you guys want to support monetarily and Patreon's not your jam, grab a t-shirt or a hoodie, some stickers, some good stuff like that. There's all sorts of stuff on the Audible Farm shop. shop.audiblefarm.com. Otherwise, audiblefarm.com has links to everything you need Audible Farm, as well as a myriad of other things, places you can contact the podcast. Been having a lot of trouble getting guests on the podcast. Holiday seasons are always busy. And I got to say thanks to my recent guests that have been able to schedule out some time with me. I've had a lot of cancellations and a lot of time, and there's been a lot of illnesses going around, so it's been rough. But if you guys want to Skype me up, hit me up. It's probably the easiest way to do the podcast during busy holiday seasons when people are ill and things like that. It's just, bad weather. It's just the easiest way to get things done. So if you're looking to be on the podcast, hit me up. Go to audiblefarm.com. Scroll to the bottom. There's a contact thing there. Otherwise, send me a message on Facebook. Audible Farm on Facebook is probably the one of the easiest ways to get a hold of me. Otherwise, I did make a post on my personal page not too long ago and had a handful of people comment on it, but only one person reached out. So if you guys commented on that and you are interested, reach out, let me know, and I'll see what we can do to get some scheduling done. I'm out. We'll check you guys next week. Peace.